Welcome back to the hottest marriage show in the galaxy. It's I, John DN, aka and Too Much Podcast, rescripting the culture one conversation at a time. Good morning.
Good morning.
How you doing?
I'm doing well. You?
I'm pretty good. How'd you sleep?
I slept well. I was not awakened by anything. Well, the doorbell, but I got to wake up pretty much naturally. That's what I prefer. One of the things I do is I'm always waking up right when my feet have to hit the floor. But I love the days where I can just wake up because my body says, "Oh, it's about time," and then you start coming out of it.
So this morning when my alarm went off to wake up, it was time to, I was sweating like a mother. And I was like, oh, this is what it feels like normally, because like I told you, like when I wake up out of my sleep and then I realize it's me, at some point I was going to wake up. Like, golly, I was in it. It was really cold outside of this.
No, I'm listening.
I'm being serious, but this is an observation that I recognize.
Okay, so it wasn't me that chased you out of the room.
No.
I snore. Okay, go ahead.
That's what I'm telling you. I was giving you this observation. My body overheats, and the slightest thing will wake me up, and then I'm like, oh, and then I know that I can't go back to sleep if you're in deep sleep.
If you're calling the cows. Well, I'm glad that it wasn't me that woke you up.
Well, the alarm woke me up this morning.
Okay, good job.
Yeah, so at 4:00 a.m. in the bed.
Okay.
Then I walked downstairs. So just think about that.
Oh, yeah.
How often does that happen?
Yeah. Well, I'm glad that you got some sleep.
I did.
And then you woke up and you were uncomfortable, but that's okay.
He's so crazy. Anyways,
What else?
So being that we're seasoned married people,
yeah,
and I think that we give this energy that we do enjoy each other's company.
Yeah.
What are some things that you feel that couples need to do if they're going to go on this journey together? A lot of times they say, why is marriage, what's worth it? So what can you do so that somebody says, okay, this is why it's worth it? Because whatever everybody else is doing is like 50-50. So what is it that you think are some necessities for two people to be on a better path of where we are?
One of the things that we talked about last night with the kids, we have our end of the year dinner. And so we're on our way home. And they asked, what's your love language, right? Some people don't believe in love languages. Some people do. Whatever the case may be. There's something to it. And this is why I think so. So everybody's saying what their love language is. And I said, hey, I've heard before that you tend to love people the way you want to be loved. But the person that you're loving may not want to be loved that way. So I think that the first thing I would think is knowing your person enough to know how they want to be loved and loving them that way. So some people would be like, but that's not how they give love. If you love me and you want me to receive that love, the way I see love, the way I feel it most may not be the way that you do. And so wouldn't you want me to be able to absorb the most out of the message?
Absolutely.
Yes.
That's awesome to just think of. That's a great, I guess, a beginner question too, before you even get into it, because if somebody's into gifts.
Yeah. So in the beginning, John was giving me gifts that were and I know we've talked about this before, they were expensive. And I was like, okay, well, this is so nice. But I wanted him to spend time with me. And he was loving me the way he wanted to love me. And I was struggling to love him the way that look. I bought him gifts. Once I started buying expensive gifts, I was like, oh my God. It was
pointless.
It was
immature. I didn't know, in my head, that's what I thought I wanted.
Yeah.
But it was expensive for us at that point in life.
It was, but you liked the gifts.
Oh, I did. I did.
Yeah.
I mean, I did without a doubt. I mean, but I'm just thinking like I could have lost you for this idea.
Well, and we were young, but the thing is, it's like I would want quality time. So even though I was like, oh, this is really nice, I would have rather wanted to do something.
Oh no.
And in the opposite end, like if I would have been like, John, I scheduled for us to do a pottery class. That might
No, not at all.
instead of some loafers. Stop it.
No, I'm saying like I think overall your birthdays were always interactive. Outside of those gifts, like you always did things. So I was always looking forward to whatever you had because it was always an experience. Yeah. So yeah, you looked at it all wrong. You would see that's what I'm saying. You made me understand that it wasn't about gifts.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, yeah. So that's what I said. Like, yeah, I got lucky.
Yeah, I think that would be my first thing is love people how they want to be loved. And I don't think that it hurts you. Like some people, I remember watching this video and this woman was like, yeah, but that's not how they do it. So you have to figure out how they love and you have to decide whether or not you want to be involved. Yeah, if somebody is stubborn and they're like, they choose not to, but why would you choose not to love somebody in the way that they want to be loved?
If you can't
I don't necessarily know. Yeah, if you can't afford it, that's true enough. But then that brings about other questions about priorities and what's important and if you guys align in that way.
Oh, for
Like, so if you feel more like spending, I would rather, like for you, it used to be about getting a certain pair of shoes or a watch or whatever. And after a while, I was like, I'll just throw a party, like a bowling party, Lux Bowl. Throw a bowling party and tell everybody from Michigan all the way down to Georgia, y'all should come this weekend. And that was, I think, my first attempt at giving you an experience rather than giving you something of, I didn't mind spending that money versus, I mean, I know you still are wearing a pair of the shoes that I got you, but it just felt like it was. So in that way, I married both of how we like to do things. So even though that gift was more about you celebrating your birthday with your friends, it wasn't like I was like attached at your hip. It made me feel good to be able to see all of the people who love you put love on you. And so, yeah. So that would be my first one. What about you?
I think the most important part is to create communication boundaries. Like when somebody gets upset, what's allowed, what's not allowed. I think if you don't set rules, somebody's going to get hurt. And I think a lot of times I've never heard anybody say we got to set rules just to talk until we started, like I was like, hey, I need some help. So I think that if people can make some, I'll give you an example when I say rules. So Kanika and I are having a conversation. She says something that triggers me, but I don't recognize it. And then my tone changes where we're kind of going back and forth, but we're not. But she's feeling defensive because of the way that I'm talking. And like it nowadays, like I used to just pounce because I'm caught up in the moment and that's not even why we're there. So if she can say, hey, you're making me feel a certain type of way, like it's like a key, like, hey, I need to stop because I didn't intend for us to get there. And I think a lot of times in relationships, like I told you, like in the beginning, you marry this person. That's who I am. So I never thought about changing it at all. But that doesn't mean the person that you love want to be spoken to that way. And I didn't understand that for so long. And some people may think that's crazy, but I heard it in other men before speaking to the people that they care for. And no matter if it doesn't come from a bad place, nobody wants to be spoken that way. And I think that if you can, even women can sometimes have a tone about themselves too, where men may get triggered also from whatever reasons. But you should have a set of rules where, like, hey, I think I said something, or like as soon as you feel it, like you feel like somebody's coming for somebody has to be the mature person and say, hey, stop. And it's getting there. But you won't know that in the beginning. But if you practice it, it can get to the point where it won't spiral out of control as much, because it'll happen. But as the more you practice, the safer it is to learn about each other. Because a lot of times we're not going to be vulnerable to our person unless we feel like it's okay. And if I can't make her feel safe, then I know that we can't get any further than we are. So I think that creating boundaries on when disagreements or misunderstandings are happening can make the relationship a lot better.
And, we talked about that in more depth, like examples and stuff in another episode. I think it was about fighting fair or whatever. So if you're newer to hearing us, then you could go back and look at that one. That one, we talked about that a lot. But I agree. And we're still working.
We already are. But this is what I can say about it. I didn't know it looked in different ways either. I thought, like, when I changed my tone, in my head, it's only around these areas. They don't come out in other areas.
What do you mean? Like when you're talking to me?
Or even with the kids and the students. In my head, and like, I'm supposed to be able to turn it on, but I didn't realize that this is still unacceptable.
Yeah. So even though we're talking about relationships, what we're saying can apply to other, not a marriage. It could apply to
just any relationship. Yeah. But yeah, that's what I'm saying. I realized just recently that I'm still having the same problems. It's in different areas. So now I'm more conscious of, or at least I want to be, like, I'm more like, because like I don't want anybody to feel that way. I was telling Kanika about a month ago, I saw somebody writing some notes and I read it, and it said, I'm scared of him. And it was like, who? It was like Mr. Lewis. And he said, me too. And I was like, oh my gosh. They talk to me all the time. Like, or he scares me. I'm like, who? Mr. Lewis. I'm like, ah. Yeah, that didn't make me feel good at all. But just with the bowling thing, and this is just a side thing, but with Dallas, and I was like, oh my God, it's like a big ass kid trying to tell on.
Yeah, it was like, you see? And I was like, oh.
Yeah, that's what it looked like. But in my head, I was just like, I need you to recognize this so you know this had nothing to do with what.
Yeah, it looked like he was telling.
But it did.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, but I think that rule, as far as being able to stop before it gets out of control. Because sometimes when things get out of control, silent treatment just goes too long for people. And that's already off the table. It should not be on anybody's table.
Yeah, silent treatment isn't like a big thing anymore. Thank God.
Yeah, and if it is, the rule, our rule we created was 48 hours.
Yeah.
And she created that rule. She said, you just give me, I got to deal with it. My number told me I got to deal with it, but I got to keep moving.
Yeah.
But that was 48 hours.
Yeah, it used to be, it could go on for a week or so. So yeah, that's different. Protecting your partner. And for me, when I think about myself and you, I do not prioritize myself at all. Like, if there's something that I would like to do, as soon as somebody else tells me that they need something else, then I abandon whatever has to do with me. Practices I used to have where I prioritize myself, or just took time for myself that it was just for me, I don't do that anymore. And I would say continuing to let your partner prioritize themselves. Not that you've ever stopped me, but if you see that they're not, encourage them to and give them opportunity to. So I say this because I have a younger family member, and he is learning how to be in a real deal relationship. And the person that he's involved with is making some big plans. And he's trying to figure out, like, where do we fit in here? Like, where do we together fit in all of what you plan to do? And I was telling him, I was like, standing in the way of someone when they are prioritizing themselves, especially at younger ages, because you're trying to figure out who you are, but you're also trying to, I'm sure that, she's also trying to figure out how to balance those things as well. Making sure that your partner put themselves first, I think it's important. I don't think that you should feel slighted by it because they're trying to improve themselves. And this is also keeping in mind that if you all are in a relationship where you feel you're in a healthy relationship or you feel loved, when your person begins to say, I need to do this for me, then protect all space around them. You ever see the videos on social media where the mom is walking through the house and the kids are walking toward the mom and the dad runs in like a linebacker and knocks the kid out of the way so that the mom can have a moment to herself? It as a the opposite side. I watched another video where the mom is walking through the house and the entire household is following her. The kids, the husband, the dog. She walks into the pantry. They all walk in the pantry with her. She gets something. She walks out. They all looking around the pantry and then they follow her out. Sometimes, I need space to myself. And as a mom, when my kids want me, I push that aside. Even if it's I'm at a moment where I probably feel like I'm about to explode. If I feel like they need to touch me more than me having to explode, I'm gonna let it happen. And I have to work on that boundary. However, just like with you, if I'm gonna go somewhere, and John, I am a passenger princess at this point. John drives me everywhere possible. But and I love hanging out with him, but sometimes I just need to go and walk and not think. And the other day when I left, you were like, do you need me to drive you? And I'm like, no. And you were like, well, if you want some company. And I was like, no, thanks. I felt like that was protecting, okay, she's good, but you put yourself out there to say, if you need me, then, I'm more than willing. But me feeling comfortable to say no, because there was a time where I felt like whenever I was trying to be on my own, I was afraid you felt like it was a slight against you because you were really, really trying to push the quality time. It was all the quality time I could have wanted in these 16 years. You were like, I'm about to put these mugs, these 16 months. And it felt good, but then I got to the point where I was like, okay, I need a minute to myself. And I don't think I've ever verbalized that to you, but I appreciate now where I know that you actually, we all can find something to do on our own. But I think that that's one of the things that I'm working on now is prioritizing myself and realizing it's okay to tell them I need a minute, or I'm going somewhere. When I try to leave out of the house and one of the kids is like, I'm going. It's hard for me to say, no, this is just for me, because I feel like everybody is needing something and I must have it in a relationship. Making sure that your person feels whole and complete and at peace with themselves, at what they're doing and where they are. Because sometimes they will sacrifice and you don't even know they're sacrificing for you. You don't know that they're giving up something of their own in order for y'all to have something. And sometimes if they had the conversation with you, you could say that's not even necessary, but they don't know that. And so I would say making sure that your person is taking care of themselves appropriately, because just like on the airplane, you can't help nobody until after you help yourself. So, but as a mother and as a woman, I know I've seen the pattern in my friends and in my family that sometimes it's just that we're not important and we should be important. And because we're not important, our health declines, our happiness, mental, physical, emotional health, all of that declines because we're literally running on E. And so I would say protect your partner and making sure that they're prioritizing themselves.
What does that look like, though?
I think Like if someone says, I need to eat better, then not harden them like, are you eating that? But maybe when y'all go out to eat, you don't go to the place where you get all you can eat Korean hot pot and barbecue. No, or like if they're saying that, they've been feeling down, or even this, like if my vitamin D levels are always low, be like, you ready to go out and walk? The sun is out. You know what I'm saying? Or why don't you go get your feet done? Lord knows I need it. But saying, why don't you go get your feet done? I'm about to go do this with the kids. Because sometimes when the mom leaves, they're worried about what everybody else is doing. So if you were like, I'm about to say the kids go do this, it might feel different. Or, just so that they don't lose sight of what they want. Like I'm not good at it. I'm not good at sitting in quiet in silence, but encouraging me to do that. And this is the one thing. I scroll. I know I've said this before. I scroll like crazy on social media. And he be getting on me. You always on social media, you just scrolling, you should. But you know what that does? It makes me feel defensive about my coping. Like that's how I deal with trying to zone out instead of going off on me about how I do it. Maybe just saying, hey, you want to take like 5-10 minutes to meditate with me, or we could be quiet, just sit in silence real quick. It doesn't make me feel bad about what I'm doing, and I don't mind 5 or 10 minutes. You know what I mean? And it's what you want me to do. It's what I say I want to do. But sometimes I just get lost in myself and I forget. Or when I stay up really late, I'm like, why don't you go give yourself a little bit more time to sleep? You can watch this tomorrow. Look, I be wanting him to coax me to do what you're not supposed to hold somebody's hand like that, but he's 16 years in. He can do that with me.
I can.
But it doesn't have to. I think one of the things I'm just giving as an example is not berating someone when they're not doing what they said that they wanted to do. Partnering with someone to do what they say they want to do. Taking away responsibilities or things that cause anxiety so the person feels like it's okay to prioritize themselves. And when you do that, it makes them not feel bad about it. It makes them feel like this is something that I deserve to have. And not everybody feels that way. But I am saying, as myself personally, and talking to other mothers, sometimes we feel, for lack of a better word, we feel bad when we get lost in something for ourselves.
I understand that. I do. And I'll work on that for sure. Look, I was just thinking like, wow, I didn't expect to get so much information. That was some good information. I think it could be very eye-opening if men see this and their wife hasn't seen this and they start to incorporate those things. Maybe it'll create a type of energy in the household where the wife was like, I don't feel as tired. But I will work on that. I never thought about how, like, as the mother, how you would feel getting away from the house when you don't know what's going to happen. Like, it's not like we're being occupied where you can be like, okay, they're doing this. Okay, now I got this. I never thought about, because when I leave the house, I don't think about what's going on.
It's literally a gift men have.
Well, I feel like everybody knows what to do. It's not like they're little anymore. So in my head, I know I shouldn't have thought about that when I was little. I shouldn't have done that when I was younger.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about as I'm older, I just automatically think everybody's already in their own world where no fire can happen. So I'm not going to think about anything because before I left, I knew that food was there. The heat was everybody's phones was working. Yeah. So in my head, I've already checked enough boxes for me to feel like I don't have to be there.
We'll see. And coming up, I've just never turned that off.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I hear that.
Because as younger kids, you would care more about that stuff. But even with our kids being older, like when I come home, and they start talking to me like they've been starved for conversation. But I know if I'd have been in the house, they probably would. They would have been in their room. But it's like, I feel, I just wonder if, I don't know, when I'm not there, what's happening? Like, is everybody okay? I don't know why I'm like that, because they're dang near on their way to being grown, but it's residual from when they're little. I guess I haven't turned that off.
Well, it's something that you can consider now. Like, all right, like I don't have to be on 10 all the time. I can be on 9. John is there.
Yes. Do you have, so, I'm always long-winded with mine. Do you have something else that you would suggest?
I do, but I don't want to run over too much.
Okay. Another time.
For sure. I feel like this. I feel like there's always ways that people can approach relationships. They just have to be on the same page about who's like if we're working on something, it can't be like you're working on it and you didn't tell me, because I know there's been times where I was working on something and like you didn't notice it. Now we got to say something. But
Did you know? I'm like,
yeah, but we can always do that. But anybody want to give a shout out to before we get out of here?
No.
I want to give a shout out to all of you guys. It's been a complete pleasure to have you guys roll with us on this journey. I'm really into getting to know this chick on the side of me, and I learn things throughout the day, whether you believe this or not. But I definitely learn things when we have these conversations, because nothing's scripted for the most part. It's like, let's learn about each other and see what happens when you run into misunderstanding, so you guys can see how we respond. But thank you guys for tuning in. Y'all make today better than yesterday. Don't worry about anything you can't control. GATA. Get after that action, or that action will get after you. Be great on purpose.